In a chilling courtroom scene, Isabel Martinez, accused of brutally killing nearly her entire family, sat before the judge with an unnerving demeanor. Smiling, she knelt down for the cameras, even flashing a thumbs up. Shocked by her behavior, the judge interrupted, "Ma'am, I'm going to caution you to cut out the display for the cameras. It's really not a good idea and probably not to your benefit." His words, however, seemed to barely register. How did this mother of five reach such a dark place? And what could have driven her to this tragic moment? Isabel Martinez was born in Michoacán, Mexico in 1984, though the exact date is unclear. Not much is known about her early years or family background, other than that she was the daughter of Maria Elena Martinez and grew up in a small town named Benito Juarez. At the age of 20, Isabel crossed the border illegally and moved to the United States. Shortly after, she began a relationship with a man whose identity remains unknown, with whom she had a daughter, also named Isabel, born in 2007. Left to raise her daughter alone when the father abandoned them, Isabel managed to make ends meet as a single mother. Later, while in Atlanta, Georgia, she met Martin Romero, a man from Michoacán who was around her age. Martin had come to the United States at 18 and worked various jobs in construction. Described by his family as hard-working and kind, Martin quickly bonded with Isabel, and their friendship blossomed into a relationship. After marrying, the couple moved in together and Martin took on a fatherly role for young Isabel. The couple settled in Chicago, Illinois, where their family grew with the births of two girls, Diana and Dakota Montserrat, and two boys, Dylan Martin and Axel Oliver. In hopes of finding better work opportunities, the family moved to Georgia in mid-2017, settling in a small mobile home community in Loganville, Gwinnett County, about 30 miles from Atlanta. Although they faced financial challenges, the family enjoyed a peaceful life, often gathering with Martin's relatives who had also immigrated from Mexico. Known for his love of singing, especially when around family, Martin was also a sports enthusiast and practiced martial arts for several years. Isabel, in turn, was seen as a devoted wife and mother, caring for the children and preparing for Martin's return home from work. Sandra Romero, Martin's cousin and Isabel's close friend, described them as a typical family who celebrated birthdays, gathered during holidays, and spent weekends with friends and relatives. Though new to the neighborhood, the family was considered close-knit and loving by neighbors, who often saw the children happily playing outside. However, tragedy struck when Isabel's father, with whom she had remained close despite the distance, passed away in Mexico in June 2017. Unable to attend the funeral due to her undocumented status, Isabel was heartbroken, fearing she wouldn't be able to return to her family if she crossed the border. This event deeply saddened her, with her grief soon spiraling into depression. Martin, noticing her struggle, took her to see a specialist who prescribed antidepressants. According to family, Martin administered one pill daily instead of the prescribed two, worried about potential overdose risks, but he genuinely wanted to support his wife through her pain. As the 4th of July holiday approached, Martine planned a family getaway to Savannah, where they spent time enjoying the beach and playing with the children. On July 5th, after the family returned home, Martine called one of his cousins to let him know he was back and planned to go to work that day. It seemed like a regular day, with Isabel and the children following their usual routines. However, in the early morning hours of July 6, 2017, a call came into Gwinnett Emergency Services at 4:47 a.m. A woman's voice, speaking Spanish, reported a horrific crime involving multiple victims. Initially unsure of what they were hearing, operators realized the woman was confessing to having taken the lives of her husband and 5 children. Identifying herself as Isabel, 33, she reported the devastating event that would send shockwaves through their quiet, close-knit neighborhood, primarily home to Hispanic families and beyond. When officers from the sheriff's department and emergency teams arrived, they were met with a heartbreaking scene inside the family home. In the main room lay Martine Romero, 33, with visible injuries from a sharp weapon. In one of the bedrooms, the bodies of 10-year-old Isabel, 7-year-old Dakota, 4-year-old Dylan, and 2-year-old Axel were found on the bed. Despite the severe injuries on each, paramedics checked each child, hoping to save at least one. Just as hope seemed lost, they discovered 9-year-old Diana Romero alive but in critical condition. She was rushed to the nearest hospital for urgent care. Nearby, officers found Isabel sitting among religious items, crying and reading a Bible. She had inflicted cuts on her wrists in an apparent attempt to end her life. When questioned, Isabel admitted to making the 911 call in which she confessed to taking the lives of her husband and children. After treating her self-inflicted wounds, authorities took Isabel into custody as the primary suspect in the tragic crime. Later that day, the police issued a statement expressing their shock at the horrific incident, noting that the crime had a profound impact on the victim's family, neighbors, and the entire community. They could not fathom the reasons that would drive someone to commit such an act against young children and their spouse, expressing hope and prayers for the recovery of the lone survivor. As news of the incident spread, neighbors were equally stunned, unable to understand why Isabel had turned so brutally against her family. Media coverage quickly grew, with both national and international headlines covering the tragedy. Moved by the family's fate, many locals set up a makeshift memorial outside the family home, leaving candles, flowers, balloons, and toys in remembrance of the lives lost. Community members shared their disbelief with reporters, describing how the family, though new to the area, appeared close-knit and happy, with the children often seen playing at the park or biking around the neighborhood. On July 7th, Isabel appeared at her first court hearing in Gwinnett County, facing 5 charges of intentional homicide, 5 counts of murder, and 6 counts of aggravated assault. Photos taken during the hearing spread widely, capturing Isabel among other inmates, sometimes smiling, sometimes making victory signs with her thumbs, and at other times clasping her hands in prayer or reaching her arms forward. When the judge listed the charges, Isabel's behavior grew erratic. She shook her head, smiled, and even pointed at the judge, who firmly reminded her to act appropriately in court. Through an interpreter, she responded that she did not need an attorney, stating that the people she was fighting for were her defenders. She went on to declare herself a representative of the working and burdened, saying she wanted to show them that with God's help, all is possible. Despite her unusual statements and refusal to hire a lawyer, the judge strongly advised her to seek legal counsel or accept a public defender. That same day, U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement confirmed in an email that the accused was named Maria Isabel Martinez from Mexico, and that she was residing in the country without documentation. Meanwhile, Diana, the only survivor of the brutal attack, remained in critical but stable condition at a pediatric hospital. She was expected to stay in the facility for 2 to 3 weeks for physical therapy and psychological support. A relative started a fundraising campaign to help cover Diana's medical treatment and the funeral expenses for her father and 4 siblings. With over 1,000 contributions, the campaign nearly reached its $50,000 goal. According to the fundraiser, Diana underwent complex surgery to repair injuries caused by multiple stab wounds. On July 11th, Isabel's public defender requested a psychological evaluation for her before the next hearing. Although there are no records of the court ordering the assessment, reports indicated that she was placed in a psychiatric facility pending trial. Meanwhile, the prosecution debated whether to seek the death penalty or life imprisonment, taking Isabel's mental health into account. While Diana continued to recover in the hospital, she was informed on July 12th that she was the only survivor from her family. On that day, she was able to leave briefly to attend the funeral for her father and siblings. Through the Mexican consulate and the migrant secretary's repatriation program, the remains of the 5 family members were returned to Michoacán, as the family could not afford the transportation costs. 11 days after the tragedy, their bodies arrived in Ciudad Hidalgo, where Martin's family held a funeral mass. They were then laid to rest at the San Jose Cemetery, where loved ones bid them a final farewell. Despite her fragile health and emotional trauma, young Diana gradually recounted the events to Child Protection Services and investigators. She revealed that her mother had taken a knife from the kitchen and attacked her siblings as they slept. When it was Diana's turn, Isabel reportedly apologized, told her she loved her, and said that soon she would go to heaven to be with Jesus. Diana begged her mother not to hurt her, but Isabel inflicted multiple wounds. Remaining conscious, Diana watched as her mother woke Martin to show him what she had done, before attacking and killing him as well. Diana recounted how her mother, though committing these acts, was calm, which terrified her deeply. Isabel then moved her children's bodies to a room, laying them side by side on a bed. She called emergency services shortly after, detailing what she had done. Once Diana was discharged from the hospital, she went to live with her uncle, Antonio Romero, Martin's brother, and his family in Atlanta. There, she continued receiving psychological support to help her cope with the traumatic events. Isabel's mother, Maria Elena Martinez, speaking from Mexico, shared that she learned of the tragedy through social media. She mentioned that 3 of her daughters, including Isabel, had struggled with mental health issues and emphasized that Isabel had long suffered from a nerve-related condition. For her, Isabel's disturbed state could explain Isabel's erratic behavior after the incident. The next development in the case occurred on April 16, 2018, when Isabel appeared for her arraignment in court at the Gwinnett County Justice and Administration Center. Though she had initially confessed, Isabel pleaded not guilty through her lawyer, claiming that a family friend, whom she never identified, was responsible for the murders. Up until that point, the district attorney had not announced plans to seek the death penalty, though it was the deadline to determine her eligibility for such punishment. Later that day, it was confirmed to local media that they would not pursue the death penalty, largely due to Isabel's apparent mental health struggles. Despite earlier reports suggesting Isabel had behaved normally in the days leading up to the tragedy, witnesses began to recount a different story. Friends and neighbors told the press that after losing her father, Isabel fell into deep sadness, which often erupted into sudden fits of anger. Following her arrest, she confided in a family and child services worker that, During their trip to Savannah, she felt a demonic spirit was trying to take her children while they played on the beach. A cousin of Martine's also shared with investigators that Isabel had mentioned wanting to bring her father back by any means, hinting that she had offered the lives of her children to a dark force. Both a niece of Isabel's and one of Martine's nieces recalled hearing her say she would offer her children to God in exchange for her father's return, and that during this ordeal she had expressed intentions to put everyone in the house to sleep. Reports also surfaced that Isabel had visited a priest about 2 weeks before the tragedy, fearing that evil people were pursuing her. The priest reportedly told her she was unwell, and her fears were simply hallucinations. Investigators later found medication typically prescribed for severe depression in the family's home, further indicating her mental health concerns. As the case attracted widespread attention across the U.S. and Mexico, various media outlets consulted specialists in forensic psychiatry, crimes against children, and female mental health for insights into the tragedy. Experts suggested that, based on Isabel's behavior in court, she may have been experiencing a psychotic episode or another severe psychiatric disorder. Though a full diagnosis required further evaluation and knowledge of her medical history, experts noted that many mothers who commit filicide are often affected by significant psychiatric conditions. They also pointed out that some families may downplay or fail to recognize the warning signs. In cases where mothers kill their children under the belief of divine instruction, specialists categorize such actions as either psychotic or altruistic filicide, in which the mother believes the children are better off in heaven. However, even though these disorders are recognized by the medical community, proving them in court is often challenging. Ultimately, in 2019, Isabel went to trial without the threat of the death penalty. On April 24th, she pleaded guilty but mentally ill to 5 counts of murder, 1 count of aggravated assault, and 1 count of child cruelty for attacking her daughter Diana, the sole survivor of the horrific events of July 6, 2017. That same day, the judge sentenced Maria Isabel Martinez, then 35, to 5 consecutive life terms for the murders of her husband, Martin Romero, and their children, Isabel, Dakota, Dylan, and Axel. Additionally, she received 21 years for aggravated assault and third-degree child cruelty in connection to Diana's injuries. Isabel would serve her sentence concurrently, with eligibility for parole after 30 years. However, if ever released, she would immediately fall under immigration custody for deportation due to her undocumented status. Following her sentencing, Isabel was reportedly transferred to a mental health facility, though her current status in November 2024 remains unconfirmed. Meanwhile, Diana has continued her recovery, both physically and emotionally. Shortly after the incident, Diana was interviewed at her uncle's home in Atlanta. She mentioned she enjoyed being with her uncle Antonio, whose laugh reminded her of her father's. Antonio shared that it had been tough for everyone, but they were doing their best to move forward. He added that Diana was receiving psychological treatment and slowly adjusting to her new life. Diana seemed at ease, playing with her cousins and talking about her interest in making jewelry. Family members expressed their hope that, with time and support, Diana would be able to overcome her trauma and lead a relatively normal life. Thanks for tuning in to Unreal True Crime. If you're intrigued by mysteries from around the world, check out our new channel, Latin Crimes, where we dive into the gripping true crime stories of Latin America. Don't miss out. Subscribe now for more thrilling investigations.